You live inside a kingdom no one else can see. Its walls are made of thoughts. Its corridors echo with what-ifs. And in that hidden palace, anxiety rules as your secret minister of defense. It watches everything. It trusts nothing. It whispers before every decision. What if they betray you? What if you fail? What if the walls collapse? You call it panic. The body calls it an alarm. But to Machiavelli, it is governance. Your mind is not breaking, it is preparing for war. Every sleepless night is a council meeting in the dark. Your instincts debating survival. Anxiety is the one voice that never sleeps, the guard pacing the walls when everyone else has drifted into the comfort of denial. Inside this kingdom, nothing escapes its gaze. Anxiety notices what others overlook. The hesitation in a friend's tone, the delay in a message, the subtle shift of power in a room. It catalogs threats like a strategist counting enemy banners. It may seem cruel, but cruelty has always been a servant of caution. The anxious mind is not weak, it is overly disciplined, built from centuries of human fragility. It has learned that a single careless trust can destroy an empire. The truth, Machiavelli would tell you, is that peace is rare and unstable. The world beyond your thoughts is no gentler than the one inside. People deceive, alliances fracture, empires fall because someone believed a promise that wasn't meant to be kept. You are not anxious because something is wrong with you. You are anxious because you sense how precarious everything truly is. The politician inside your skull knows this. Power is fragile and safety is a temporary illusion. Anxiety, then, is not madness. It is realism with a pulse. It is your inner diplomat refusing to believe in fairy tales. When you walk into a crowded room and your chest tightens, that is your minister of defense calculating risks. Who here is ally? Who is the threat? You might wish to silence it, but silence has always been the favorite tool of the naive. The anxious ones, though restless, are rarely blindsided. They live prepared. Look at the world. Markets collapse overnight. Lovers turn into strangers. Friends vanish at the scent of failure. To live without anxiety would mean to live blind in a house full of sharp edges. The anxious man, though tormented, survives because he assumes instability is the rule, not the exception. He keeps one eye open while others sleep in comfort. He trusts, but only after observation. That is not fear, it is strategy. And so the question is not how to kill anxiety, but how to interpret it. Machiavelli would not tell you to silence your minister of defense. He would tell you to understand its reports. Anxiety does not torment for pleasure. It warns, it sharpens, it ensures that your kingdom does not fall through complacency. Each racing heartbeat, each imagined catastrophe is a simulation, a rehearsal for when the world truly tests you. You may hate its voice, but it has saved you more times than you know. Every hesitation before a bad deal, every unease around false promises, every second thought before surrender. Those are the victories anxiety gave you. It is the strategist behind your survival, the silent architect of your endurance. Without it, you would mistake danger for love and deception for peace. So the next time it rises within you, do not curse it. Listen, beneath the trembling hands and restless thoughts lies a loyal servant, reminding you the world is not gentle, but you can still be prepared. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is your intelligence refusing to die. Men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone ready to be deceived. You were told the world was safe, that if you followed the rules, smiled politely, and loved enough, peace would be yours. But the truth, the world was never built for comfort. It was built for motion, and motion creates conflict. What you call chaos is not an accident. It is the law of nature and power alike. You crave safety because safety feels like control. You check your phone again, you plan the week ahead. You promise yourself that if you work hard enough, love well enough, say the right things, the ground beneath you will stop shaking. But the world is not built on promises. It is built on leverage. Every calm moment exists because someone else is holding the storm still. When they let go, you feel the tremor. That's when anxiety enters. The loyal messenger reminding you that you are not the one holding the reins. The myth of safety is the most seductive illusion of all. You want to believe that someone, somewhere has things figured out, that governments, companies, or partners will keep the wall standing. But safety, like politics, depends on constant vigilance. Those who stop watching the gates soon find them overrun. The anxious mind knows this instinctively. It scans for threat because history has proven threat is real. From lost jobs to broken vows, from betrayal by friends to collapse of systems, anxiety rises whenever the illusion of permanence dies. The fearful are not irrational. They are realists who have seen enough to know how fragile peace really is. Then comes love, the sweetest poison, the only force powerful enough to make you forget every strategy, every lesson. Love convinces you that vulnerability is virtue, that devotion will be rewarded. You lower your guard believing affection is safety. But even in love, power breathes. People love to the degree it benefits them. They promise eternity but calculate advantage. And when advantage shifts, affection cools. The same lips that swore loyalty yesterday will speak indifference tomorrow. Love is not pure. It is negotiation dressed as romance. When you fell in love, you surrendered leverage. You gave someone the ability to wound you. And when they did, anxiety was there whispering, you forgot your armor. That ache in your chest after rejection, it's not only heartbreak, it's political humiliation. Your inner ruler realizes the court has turned against you. The Minister of Defense, your anxiety scrambles to rebuild order from the ruins of trust. Machiavelli would not mock love. He would simply call it what it is, an alliance, not salvation. To love is to gamble that the other will not use their power against you. When they do, you call it betrayal. But betrayal is only proof that they played the game better. Love without awareness is submission disguised as faith. And what of comfort? The world sells it like a drug. Companies promise peace through products, apps, and empty slogans. Breathe, relax, you are safe, they whisper this while mining your attention, tracking your fears and selling them back to you as solutions. The market understands what Machiavelli understood. Control the mind, and you control the man. Comfort is not peace, it is sedation. You scroll through images of perfect lives, mistaking distraction for rest. You believe anxiety is a malfunction, so you medicate it, drown it, deny it. But anxiety is not the disease, it's the rebellion. It is the last honest part of you refusing to bow to false calm. Every time you numb it, you strengthen your dependence on illusion. The powerful have always understood this game. They do not promise truth, they promise ease. Religion, politics, media, all offer the same trade. Surrender your fear, and we'll give you belonging. Yet that belonging costs your autonomy. The anxious ones who question are labeled weak or broken, when in truth they are awake. They see the strings, the performance, the constant manipulation behind the smiles. So, when your chest tightens at the thought of uncertainty, do not curse it, that is your strategist, reminding you that stability is theater, not truth, that peace is something to be managed, not owned. Every empire that believed itself invincible eventually crumbled under its own illusion of safety. Every heart that trusted blindly eventually met its own collapse. You were not born to live asleep. You were born to read the patterns of power within yourself and in others. Anxiety is the voice urging you to do just that, to see through comfort, to question love, to stop waiting for safety to save you, because safety is not given, it is guarded. Peace without awareness is surrender in disguise. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Inside your mind sits a throne. Around it gathers a court, pride with its jeweled crown, insecurity hiding behind charm, doubt whispering in the dark. Each voice fights for influence. Each seeks control over your every move. This is the politics of the self. You are both the ruler and the ruled. And in that crowded chamber, anxiety speaks not as an enemy, but as the cautious advisor, the one who sees betrayal before it happens. Yet you resent it, you call it weakness, you curse its interruptions. You do not realize that without it, your kingdom would already have fallen. Anxiety is not hysteria. It is intelligence sharpened by fear. Pride will tell you that you are untouchable. Ambition will tell you to charge forward. But anxiety studies the map. It watches for ambush. It notices the hesitation in a voice, the absence of loyalty behind a smile. It is the strategist who prepares when others celebrate. You may despise its tension, But tension is the mark of awareness. The ruler who ignores his anxious counselor soon learns what every fallen leader learns too late, that comfort blinds and blindness invites defeat. Within this internal court, every voice has an agenda. Pride wants admiration. Doubt wants safety. Desire wants control. And anxiety, it wants survival. It cares nothing for your comfort. It exists to keep the kingdom intact. When the world grows uncertain, it rings the alarm. But rather than listen, you drown it in distraction. You call it overthinking, when it is actually foresight. These voices were not born yesterday. They are inherited strategies, carved from your earliest lessons in power and vulnerability. As a child, you learned politics without knowing it. When to speak, when to stay silent, who could be trusted with truth, and who punished honesty. Every betrayal taught you negotiation. Every punishment taught you the limits of expression. What others call trauma, Machiavelli would call intelligence forged by necessity. You learn not to rely on sentiment, but on analysis, not on hope, but on awareness. Those early lessons remain. You no longer live in your childhood home, but the politics of it still govern you. The anxious pause before you open up to someone. That is the old strategy returning. The memory of being judged, dismissed, or left. The hesitance to celebrate too soon. That's the caution of someone who's seen joy stolen before. These wounds are not ghosts. They are political operatives, shaping your alliances, steering your decisions. You think you are acting freely, but your history is voting in every council of your mind. Anxiety studies that history. It remembers the treaties you signed with pain, the vows to never be humiliated again, to always stay one step ahead, to never trust too easily. You keep those oaths even now, long after the war has ended. That's why you question kindness. That's why you prepare for loss while love is still warm. You learned early that safety is temporary, and anxiety refuses to let you forget it. But here lies the betrayal, not from others but from within. You betray yourself every time you dismiss your anxiety's counsel. When you pretend to be fearless, you hand the keys of your kingdom to delusion. When you rush into relationships without observation, you expose your weak points to manipulation. The world does not reward innocence. It rewards awareness. The anxious one sees the game for what it is. The naive one insists it isn't being played. Most people's greatest defeats come not from enemies, but from ignored warnings. You knew the friend who smiled too wide would turn on you. You sensed the partner's attention slipping long before they left, but you buried the signals under false optimism. You called your intuition paranoia. You wanted peace more than truth, so you chose to believe the flattering lie, and the price of that lie was betrayal. Machiavelli would call this emotional negligence, the failure to manage one's own state. The ruler who cannot read himself will never read others. Anxiety exposes your weak points not to shame you, but to prepare you. It forces you to study the cracks in your armor before someone else does. Every uneasy thought, every moment of self-doubt is intelligence gathering. Ignore it, and you make yourself an easy conquest. Listen to it, and you gain leverage. Understand this, your wounds are not just scars, they are teachers. They trained you in vigilance, pattern recognition, and emotional diplomacy. But if you let them rule you unconsciously, they turn from advisors into tyrants. The goal is not to silence anxiety, nor to obey it blindly, but to seat it properly, not as ruler, not as servant, but as strategist. When you do this, your inner court stabilizes. Pride no longer overpromises. Doubt no longer sabotages. Fear no longer panics. Each voice finds its role, and anxiety, once despised, becomes your most trusted counselor. The ruler who listens to warning without surrendering to it, who studies his own wounds without becoming their hostage, that ruler cannot be easily overthrown. Your mind is a kingdom. Guard it with strategy, not sentiment. Your wounds remember what your mind denies. Listen to them before your enemies do. The night your guard becomes your king, the city burns from the inside. You feel it begin as a tightening in your chest, a private decree signed in the dark. Anxiety stops advising and starts commanding. It no longer whispers intelligence, it issues orders. Every look becomes a plot, every delay a conspiracy, every silence an attack in disguise. You used to run your kingdom with counsels and maps and measured caution. Now a single rumor from your nerves sends patrols racing down every street of your mind. You interrogate memories. You question loyal allies. You revise the past as if it were a forged treaty. The careful ruler is gone, replaced by a tyrant who trusts nothing, not even the truth he himself declared yesterday. You know this coup by its symptoms. You delete and retype a message 10 times, searching for a phrase that cannot be misread. You reread a colleague's email and find a hostile clause where there is none. You look at your partner and ask a question you already asked, again and again, because reassurance now has the shelf life of a spark in the rain. Suspicion becomes your religion. Doubt becomes your doctrine. Even your own motives stand trial. You wonder if kindness is manipulation. You accuse yourself of weakness for wanting rest. The Minister of Defense has overthrown the throne, and the city bows out of terror, not respect. With the coup secure, reason flees the palace. Your thoughts break ranks and clash in the streets. Fear rides at the front, armored and loud, promising safety in exchange for obedience. Confidence deserts first. It slips through a side gate with no farewell, taking ease and humor with it. Soon projects that once felt clear turn to fog. Plans bruise under your grip. You second-guess a simple greeting like it were a treaty that could cost you a province. Your body drafts soldiers from your breath. It seizes your stomach for provisions. It posts guards at your throat. Sleep surrenders. Food negotiates for passage. Even music sounds like propaganda from a city you no longer trust. Scenes unfold with cinematic cruelty. You rehearse catastrophes until they feel like memory. You imagine the call that ends your job. You picture the message that ends your love. You walk into a room and see faces as occupying forces. Each expression attacks. Each glance a border crossing. Decisions stall at the checkpoint of your nerves. You try to push forward, but the red light never changes. You try to step back, but the gate is shut. So you circle, proud horses turned into patrol dogs, pacing, panting, performing safety while the fire spreads behind the walls. You tell yourself to be rational. You recite principles like a prince reading laws to a mob. But the mob wants spectacle, not doctrine. Fear governs by decree. Cancel the meeting, rewrite the plan. Avoid the street, avoid the call, avoid the mirror. The constitution of your mind is suspended. Emergency powers extend past midnight into dawn, then further, then forever. You live under curfew set by a heartbeat that refuses to slow. You are both captive and warden, tightening your own chains because you dread who will grab them if you don't. And then the court turns silent. After the riots of thought, a numb winter settles over the stones. You stop asking for counsel, because every voice sounds like an enemy. Friends text, and you wait, unable to answer, unwilling to explain, ashamed to admit the city is not safe to enter. You scroll, not to learn, but to forget. The motion itself is the anesthetic. You turn down invitations, invent reasons, polish the mask of busy until it shines with plausible distance. You do not trust yourself with joy. You do not trust others with your fatigue. You lower the flags, not in honor, but in surrender. Distrust becomes your policy. You ration your words as if your sentences were gold, as if generosity might bankrupt you. When someone compliments you, you hear taxation. When someone pauses before replying, you hear betrayal. You retreat behind comfort that does not comfort. Familiar walls, dull entertainment, habits that promise peace and deliver trance. The people inside your city, the citizen parts of you that laugh and make art and say yes, lose faith in their ruler. They stop bringing ideas to the palace. They hide their talents in basements. They whisper, "He governs by fear," and lock their doors. The tragedy is not that you are weak. The tragedy is that your strongest asset mutinied and you believed its new flag was the only flag. Anxiety was meant to spot danger at the horizon, not name every horizon a danger. It was designed to be your scout, not your sovereign. When it seized the throne, it promised protection but delivered occupation. It kept you alive, yes, but not free. And what is a kingdom worth if it survives by extinguishing its own light? Recognize the cost in simple moments. You pass on a risk that would have grown you. You reject a conversation that would have softened you. You cling to an inferior plan because it feels familiar, which means it feels controllable, which means it feels safe, and safety has replaced truth as your highest law. But the city cannot breathe under permanent siege. Trade dies, art dies, friendship dies, even order becomes a kind of ruin. There is a harder truth beneath the wreckage. You mistook suspicion for wisdom. You treated tension like a virtue and certainty like a shield. You believed that vigilance without mercy would make you untouchable. Yet vigilance without mercy only makes you unreachable to others and to yourself. Your citizens stop coming to the square. The fountains dry. A quiet city is not a safe city. It is an abandoned one. What then is left when identity lies in pieces? A chance the old rulers never had to rebuild the Constitution deliberately, to revise the chain of command, to return anxiety to the post it deserves, not as monarch, not as prisoner, but as sentinel. The coup has shown you what happens when one voice rules. Let it also show you how badly you need a council. Begin where all restorations begin, with a small, enforceable law. One breath that is not negotiated by fear. One task done to completion without consulting catastrophe. One message sent without reading it into fear's preferred script. These are not victories for comfort, but for sovereignty. They are how citizens start believing again. They see the lamps relit, they hear music in the square. They come out of their houses, not to riot, but to live. You reclaim the palace, not by screaming at the guards, but by reopening the doors. Invite reason back to the table. Invite curiosity to ask its unarmed questions. Invite courage, not as a mercenary who loves battle, but as a civil architect who loves bridges, and let anxiety stay at the wall, where it belongs, scanning the horizon, reporting what it sees, not deciding who you are. A kingdom that survives its own coup learns the rarest skill, the strength to be strong without being scared into it. You can be cautious without being cruel to yourself. You can be alert without accusing every shadow of treason. You can be prepared without living as if the worst already happened. Restore your city, not to silence, but to order, not to denial, but to deliberate calm. The tyrant in your chest is only powerful as long as you mistake him for you. I step down from fear-step's throne and rule my mind with measured strength. Love is the sweetest mask fear ever wore. You mistook anxiety for treason because it spoke in a hard voice. It interrupted your ease, vetoed your impulses, and demanded receipts for every promise. You called it cruel, but its cruelty was a garrison's discipline, not a torturer's delight. Anxiety walks the ramparts at night, so your softer parts can sleep. It inspects hinges. It tests locks. It refuses to trust a gate only because it was painted yesterday. When it stabs you with a thought, what if this fails? What if they leave? It is not striking at your heart. It is striking at your negligence. A kingdom does not fall because enemies are strong. It falls because the doors were left open in the name of love. Consider the moments you labeled overreaction. You rechecked the numbers before you signed. You paused before confessing everything to a stranger who felt like a soulmate after 2 dates. You asked the question in a meeting that risked being unpopular but saved the project weeks later. That irritation you felt at your own vigilance, call it what it was, loyalty. Anxiety's loyalty is to your sovereignty, not your mood. It would rather be hated by you than see you ruled by somebody else's charm. You wanted gentle protection, but survival is often sharp. The guard who wakes you before dawn feels like an enemy until the smoke under the door proves him right. Anxiety is that guard. It will bruise your comfort in exchange for keeping the roof over your head. Does it overstep? Yes, but even your anger at its severity is a luxury kept affordable by the order it preserves. Dependency is where you confused love with ransom. Each time you needed someone to text back in 3 minutes so you could breathe, you placed your lungs in their pocket. Each time you edited your views to keep a friendship, you traded policy for applause. You outsourced your sense of worth to a partner's attention, a boss's praise, an audience's claps. It felt like devotion. It was debt. Dependency says, grant me peace, and I will pay with obedience. Observe the market built on that bargain. Apps selling calm if you never log off. Influencers selling validation if you never look away. Relationships selling forever. If you never disagree, you bought peace on credit. Anxiety came collecting interest. It pressed on your chest when the reply took too long. It tightened your stomach when your smile felt rented. That pressure was not sabotage. It was a sovereign's reminder. You have mortgaged the palace to buy flowers for the balcony. You know the scenes. You post and then watch the numbers like a hostage negotiator counting seconds. You accept a meeting invite even when the agenda insults your time, because your worth feels negotiated by their calendar. You stay in the relationship that shrinks you because silence is easier than rebuilding alone. Anxiety becomes unbearable, not because it lies, but because it keeps telling an inconvenient truth. Your leash is invisible and you are holding the other end. Reframing begins when you call this what it is, not love, but dependency. Love respects borders, dependency erases them and calls the erasure intimacy. Love strengthens two. Dependency weakens one and fattens the other. The day you confuse the two, you open the gates and hang a banner that says, "Rule me kindly." History suggests kind rulers are rare and temporary. So turn the accusation into a command structure. Anxiety is not your enemy. It is a cabinet member out of place. You do not banish a capable minister for speaking harshly. You redefine his brief. Return anxiety to intelligence, reports, not decrees. Let it bring risks without writing laws. When it says, "Don't trust anyone," translate it into policy. Trust slowly, verify always. When it says, "They'll leave you," refine it to action. Build a self they cannot evacuate. When it says, "You will fail," draft a contingency plan and proceed. Shift your posture from pleading to planning. If your partner's approval can destroy your day, reallocate power. Build routines that stabilize you regardless. Training, work you respect, friendships that tolerate truth. If your boss's mood can erase your worth, diversify allegiance. Skills portable beyond one office, savings that lower your fear rate, projects that remind you of competence outside their gaze. Sovereignty is not a slogan, it is a budget. Practice small separations. Send the message without rereading it 12 times. Accept the risk that your tone is human. Speak a boundary without a thesis. Endure their displeasure without renegotiating your dignity. Decline an invitation that flatters your loneliness more than it honors your time. Replace the nightly vigil over notifications with a curfew that answers to you. These are not rejections of love. They are a defense of rule. Your inner cabinet must change too. Promote discernment. Hire patience. Fire flattery. Keep anxiety on the wall where it belongs. Eyes on the horizon, reporting weather, counting ships. Invite courage to read the reports and choose routes. Invite reason to measure costs. Invite compassion to remind you that people, including you, are imperfect and still sometimes worthy of trust. The prince survives by counsels, not by panic. Here is the pivot. You stop asking, "Do they love me enough to make me safe?" and start asking, "Do I govern myself well enough to meet them freely?" Love is fragile under the weight of worship. It rots into power when one soul supplies the other's air. The aim is not to love less, but to depend less, so that love can be selected, not begged. When your chest tightens again, and it will hear the tone behind the alarm, it is not mocking you, it is saying, "Fortify here, inspect there, reclaim this key from that hand." It is summoning you from citizen to sovereign, from petition to policy. It is asking you to stop paying for peace with pieces of yourself. Treat your fear as an advisor, not a jailer. Learn its language, correct its exaggerations, honor its warnings. Build a life where love is chosen across a line you guard, not granted across a line you erased. Then the next time dependency knocks wearing roses, you will have the strength to admire the bouquet and keep your crown. I trade my need for approval for the quiet power of self-rule. The throne is steady when fear sits as a counselor, not as a king. You call the council at dawn. The doors open to order, not alarm. Anxiety enters first in plain cloth with a ledger. It reports, it does not command. You nod and the room understands the new law. Intelligence is welcome. Tyranny is not. Pride sits without speeches. Doubt brings questions like lanterns. Desire arrives with maps, not demands. You preside, voice measured, breath unhurried. This is the council of fear. You keep anxiety at the table because it sees what pleasure ignores. It finds the weak hinge on a promise, hears the hollow ring in sudden devotion, smells smoke before others see flame. But you set rules. Anxiety must present evidence, the risk, the probability, the cost of inaction. It must propose actions with a start and an end. No more endless alarms. No more midnight coups dressed as care. You practice this in ordinary scenes. A text arrives without an emoji and anxiety says trouble. You command options, not fiction. Wait until evening to ask. Call and clarify. Continue your schedule and revisit after dinner. A project slips by a day, and anxiety says catastrophe. You ask for the ledger. What can be salvaged? Who needs a message? What must be cut to protect the timeline? You are not denying fear. You are harnessing it. This is how a ruler wins without wasting soldiers. From here, strategy replaces reflex. You stop reacting like a village under raid and start planning like a capital with a long memory. You separate signals from noise. You measure by process, not mood. Observation becomes your first weapon. You watch your patterns when you overpromise, where you overspend energy, which names on your phone quicken your pulse. You track triggers like border crossings and place guards there. Gentle alarms, not sirens that level the street. Anticipation takes the throne from panic. You design rehearsals, the talk with your manager, the boundary with your partner, the interview where you will advocate for your worth. You write 3 versions: direct, diplomatic, concise, and practice until your voice remembers what your nerves forget. When the day arrives, your body recognizes the terrain. Panic wants to sprint blind. Anticipation chooses a path with exits. You adopt policies. Mornings belong to building, not worrying. The first hour is craft, writing, planning, making. The mind learns the day begins with mastery, not headlines. Midday belongs to cooperation. The time when anxiety once improvised doom, but now saves you by catching details. Evenings are counsel and renewal, a short review, a walk to reset the breath, a friendship that tolerates truth. Your language becomes strategic. You stop saying always and never. You speak in specifics. You replace "I'm a mess" with "I slept 4 hours and my attention is low until lunch." You replace "they hate me" with "the feedback was sharp. I'll extract the useful part and respond tomorrow." You replace "I can't" with "I won't yet. I need 10 more attempts." Precision dissolves melodrama. Drama wastes soldiers. Precision wins campaigns. You cultivate intelligence networks, not spies in alleys, but habits that inform you before fear invents stories. Weekly money check-ins, so bills cannot ambush. Basic health routines, so symptoms do not run the narrative. Scheduled solitude, so silence becomes a friend, not a verdict. Where ignorance grew monsters, data shrinks them into decisions. You put attention on a budget. You tax distractions. You subsidize deep work. You also study the enemy you once called the self. You notice how fatigue dresses as doom, how hunger signs dispatches in the handwriting of despair, how loneliness translates neutral events into insults. You ask, what did I eat? How did I sleep? Whom did I speak with? What stories did I scroll? This is not confession, this is logistics. Armies collapse from logistics before they fall in battle. Detachment becomes your armor, not the coldness that refuses love, but the distance that refuses worship. You aim to see events as a governor sees weather, serious, but not sovereign. A canceled plan is weather. A harsh comment is weather. A poor quarter is weather. You respect storms, and then you govern. You neither curse the rain nor dance for it. You redirect the water into channels designed yesterday. Practice the micro moves of power. A pause before reply. A breath before yes. A written plan before confrontation. Sit with your feet on the ground and let silence open like a gate until the other person reveals their true terms. Let your heartbeat rise and fall without reading it as prophecy. Measure twice and cut once. Take the meeting when you choose, not when anxiety insists you must fix everything now. When fear surges, treat it like weather intelligence. A surge means something matters. Thank it. Check the map. Choose between 3 verbs: advance, fortify, or withdraw. Advance when the opportunity will shrink if ignored. Fortify when preparation reduces risk. Withdraw when the cost of victory is your character. This is not dramatics, it is calculus. Princes fall when they confuse fury with courage. Detachment also means reducing the size of the stage. You stop performing to win rooms that would never vote for you. You invest in arenas where your values match the rules. You let some battles pass unfought, not because you fear them, but because they do not build your city. The result is not smaller ambition, but narrower fire, heat that cooks steel instead of burning the kitchen. If you falter, you do not collapse into shame. Convene the council and review the tape like a strategist after a loss. Where did emotion jump the chain of command? Where did protocol fail? What new guard prevents a repeat? No speeches, no flags at half-mast. Improvement, then movement. Understand the serenity you seek. It is not the absence of the drum. It is your hand steady on it. Mastery is not fearlessness. It is command. You still feel the wind rise. You still hear the window rattle, but you choose when to close it and when to let the cold remind you that you are alive and responsible. You rise from the table, and the council stands. Anxiety bows with the others. It escorts you to the wall and points to the horizon. You listen, ask 3 questions, and decide. The city notices the order of this ritual and learns to breathe by it. Panic may visit, but it no longer carries keys. You are not cured. You are crowned. I hold fear to the light and make it serve. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. You do not wait for peace, you build it. You build it like a fortress, one brick of habit at a time. No speeches, no banners, only small, repeatable acts of self-command. You wake, breathe, and choose your first move before the world chooses for you. Phone face down, water. A plan with 3 clear tasks. This is not romance, this is rule. Controlled calm is not a mood you hope for. It is a discipline you practice when your hands shake and the news shouts. You return to protocols. Start with work that matters. Finish one thing fully. Review the field before opening the gates. You set curfews for panic. You do not hold emergency meetings over rumors. When a worry arrives, you schedule it. 10 minutes at noon to list the facts. 5 minutes at dusk to close the books. You give fear a desk, a pen, and a form to complete. If it has evidence, you act. If it has only drama, you stamp it noted and move on. This is how you stop drowning in weather. This is how you sail. Controlled calm also means shrinking the battlefield. Fewer commitments, clearer promises. You choose arenas where your efforts compound instead of scatter. You make peace measurable, 8 hours of sleep, most nights, honest food most days, movement that resets the nervous system. You do not worship these rituals, you use them. They keep the gates staffed when fortune tries the locks. Do not despise fear, treat it as the shadow of wisdom. A ruler without fear walks unarmed into traps. He was warned about. Keep the fox near your maps. Let it whisper the old lessons. People reveal more in patterns than in pledges. Timing changes loyalties. Praise is cheaper than respect. Fear alerts you to what can be lost if you grow careless. But fear is not the driver. It sits in the council and points out cliffs while courage selects the road. You train this alliance with drills. Before the hard conversation, you write the aim in 1 sentence. Before the presentation, you practice the first minute until your voice carries itself. Before the journey, you assume delays and pack margins of time. Fear says, "What if?" You answer, "Then we do this." Each contingency reduces panic's bargaining power. You become the leader who has more options than feelings. Let fear sharpen your eye for traps, but let hope choose your strategy. Hope is not a daydream here. It is a posture. It says, I can meet what comes because I have prepared for what often comes. It says, I can be surprised without falling apart. It replaces superstition with systems, money set aside, documents in order, a circle of allies who speak straight. This is not the absence of dread. It is the presence of readiness. At the end of the day, the sovereign mind is quiet, not because the world is gentle, but because it is governed. You are not fearless. You are untouchable in a different way. You can be moved without being removed. Insults do not become laws. Delays do not become verdicts. Storms do not become identities. You hear the gate bell ring and you go to the wall, not to panic, but to look. You decide with a steady hand, open, hold, or close. You remember that peace is a policy renewed daily by conduct, not guaranteed by mood. So you end where true power begins, with ordinary choices done consistently. A list kept short. A boundary kept firm, a breath kept long. The city learns your rhythm and follows it. Markets will swing, people will change, fortune will laugh, but the throne inside remains steady because you are both lion and fox, force and foresight, courage and caution, joined under one will. Peace is the discipline I practice, not the favor I beg.